Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we are going to be doing my rookie quarterback rankings for Dynasty in 2021. Now, rookie Dynasty drafts are either around the corner or maybe you already had it, but in this video, I am going to be talking about my top 8 rookie quarterbacks for Dynasty in 2021. Now, this does not necessarily mean this is who I like this year. In order, it's more about who I like for the long future of your Dynasty team. So before we get into it, if you guys do end up enjoying this video at any point, you end up having a great time, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you are new. It's free, and I put out content every single day, helping you guys win your 2021 fantasy football leagues. I also make Dynasty content, as well as content on the NFL as a whole. So without further ado, let's get into it. At my number 1 overall ranked quarterback, you guessed it, it is Trevor Lawrence, quarterback out of Clemson. Getting drafted to the Jacksonville Jaguars was basically the mortal lock of the century for the last probably year at this point. At least we knew he was going to be the first overall pick. We didn't necessarily know who he was going to go to, but after the Jets ended up fumbling the bag and winning that game, he was going to be a Jacksonville Jaguar, and this is quite the okay landing spot, I would say. Now, I don't necessarily love head coach Urban Meyer, and I don't necessarily love the team around him, but the team will continue to get better through the drafts. They did end up bringing in his buddy Travis Etienne to be the running back. While I don't necessarily love that move for James Robinson, it is an alright move for Trevor Lawrence. I think that they have good enough wide receivers and a decent O-line that Trevor Lawrence should just be solid for the long haul and would be worth the 101 in Superflex leagues. I don't think there's really too much to break down when it comes to Trevor Lawrence. Everyone knows exactly how good this 6'6", 220-pound monster is at the game of football, and he also has some rushing upside that I don't think people talk about enough. In his second year at Clemson in 2019, rushed for 563 yards, 9 touchdowns. Last year, 177 rushing yards and 8 total touchdowns. Last year, he also passed for over 3,000 yards on 334 attempts and 24 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions. He threw for over 3,000 yards every single season of his collegiate career and won the national championship as a freshman in 2018. So there's a lot of accolades that Trevor Lawrence has, and you just have to assume that he's going to be able to translate that over into the NFL. People are comparing this guy to such a complete college prospect of Andrew Luck, of guys like John Elway, all these guys that were so much like surefire draft picks at their time. That's what they're comparing Trevor Lawrence to. Now, I understand Jacksonville isn't the best situation, but typically when you're the first overall pick in the NFL draft, you're not going to go to the greatest fucking spot because the team that you went to is absolutely atrocious last year, and they haven't been that great in a while in Jacksonville. But I do think that Trevor Lawrence should be able to turn them around, and he should be pretty solid even next year or this season. Even though I don't necessarily think he's going to be like a top 12 guy, it would not surprise me if Trevor Lawrence finished there at the end of the year. At number 2, we kind of have a spot where it's pretty difficult to figure out who I want to be the number 2 guy, but after dwelling and thinking about it, putting my thinking cap on, I came up with the fact that I think Justin Fields out of the Ohio State University is going to be my quarterback 2 in Dynasty, the 11th overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft after they traded up to get their guy in quarterback Justin Fields. Andy Dalton is no longer 6 feet 3 inches, 227 pounds. Justin Fields, 22 years old, also ran a 4.46 in the 40-yard dash, which, just so you guys know, that's pretty fucking fast for a quarterback. Now, Justin Fields does get the recognition of being a guy that can use his sweet feet when trying to maneuver outside of the pocket, which is something that Trevor Lawrence doesn't get enough credit for, which is why I kind of brought it up earlier. Now, Justin Fields did get a pretty solid landing spot, as I think the Chicago Bears offense as a whole is pretty good. Now, Matt Nagy, while the guy does struggle calling plays sometimes, the guy just does stupid shit all the time, and that shouldn't surprise you as someone who has been watching football for a while. You would know this, that Matt Nagy does make all types of questionable decisions. Ryan Pace is a fucking idiot. The guy doesn't know how to draft, but maybe the page has turned over and maybe it's a new Chi-Town Bears. I think that Justin Fields landed in a pretty solid spot with a very good defense in Chicago. In college, Justin Fields really lit it up in 2019 and 2020. He played very good as well, leading their team to the national championship where they ultimately got folded and bent over a table by Big Daddy Mac Jones, who we're going to be talking about a little bit later. In 2020, in 8 games, Justin Fields threw for 2,100 yards on 225 attempts, 70% completion percentage, 22 touchdowns to just 6 INTs, as well as 383 rushing yards and 5 total rushing touchdowns in 2019, where he had his big season after not really playing all that much in 2018 because Jake from State Farm was there. 14 games, 354 passing attempts in 2019 for 3,273 passing yards, 43 tugs, and just 3 INTs, as well as rushing for 10 touchdowns and almost 500 yards. Now, with Justin Fields, again, the landing spot just seems much better than some of these guys that I'm going to be talking about later, besides maybe the next guy. But I do think that Justin Fields is going to be usable this year, just like I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be. Some of these guys, I'm not too sure how much they're going to play in 2021, but I do know for a fact that Justin Fields will eventually get crammed directly into this fucking lineup, because you cannot have the Andy Dalton experience last more than 3 games, because the fans are going to get annoyed. They're going to get annoyed because Andy Dalton is not the Andy Dalton of like 5 years ago. Back in the day, I actually think Andy Dalton gets a lot of discredit because 4 or 5 years ago, Andy Dalton was legitimately really good when the Bengals were actually playing pretty well, and then eventually the wheels kind of fell off the Andy Dalton bus, and he's just about all right now. I think Justin Fields obviously is much better, and if he doesn't start week 1, it's only going to take a couple of games before Justin Fields gets to suit up for the Chicago Bears. He's not going to be shooting up. He's not a crackhead. So at the spot where you can get him, I think he won't be the quarterback 2 coming off the board in a lot of drafts. I'm seeing people really high on quarterback Trey Lance. Speaking of shooting up, you get it? So I think that Justin Fields will be worth the 102, 103 in Superflex leagues. He is easily my number 2 quarterback here, just because I think that this offense should be solid. I do worry about, once Allen Robinson potentially leaves next year, what this offense is going to look like. But hey, I think Fields is good enough to overcome any adversity coming his way in Chicago, other than the fact that maybe their quarterbacks are just cursed. Next up, at number 3, we have Trey Lance, quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, the 3rd overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft. Everyone and their mother thought it was going to be Mac Daddy Jones going to the San Francisco 49ers until about the day before the draft. And then it all changed. Everyone's like, holy shit, it's going to be Trey Lance. And then bada bing, bada boom, step inside the room. Trey Lance becomes the pick at the number 3 hole in the 2021 NFL draft. 21 years old, Trey Lance out of North Dakota State, 6'4", 226 pounds. Now, with Trey Lance, there's definitely some huge question marks. This guy's coming from a school that you probably never heard of unless you realize that Carson Wentz went there, wasn't playing up against the greatest competition, which is also a knock on quarterback Zach Wilson. This guy is a very raw talent, but what really concerns me about Trey Lance is I genuinely have zero fucking idea when this guy is going to end up playing football for the San Francisco 49ers and being the starting quarterback, because personally, I think it's going to be relatively soon. But then I'm reading all these news articles, maybe they're happy sitting Trey Lance behind Jimmy Garoppolo for 2 years. Jimmy Garoppolo's contract lasts 2 more years. Trey Lance sits behind him, learns from Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo comes out and says, Tom Brady taught me, I'm going to teach Trey Lance this, that, and the other thing, and that kind of worries me, because if he doesn't play for 2 years, you're basically taking your pick and fucking kicking it out the window, because he's not useful for 2 years, obviously, if he's not going to play. But then there's the other side of the rock, the other side of the equation, where you're thinking, you know what, Trey Lance is so good, you don't draft a guy at the 3rd overall pick for him to just sit on the bench for 2 years. Maybe it only takes 1 year, or maybe Jimmy Garoppolo goes down like he always does. That's why they call him porn star Jimmy, because he's always going down, if you catch my drift. Now, Trey Lance is a good player, in my opinion. His 2019 campaign was absolutely insane in the membrane. Plays 16 total games, 287 pass attempts, 2,700 yards, 28 touchdowns, 0 INTs, 1,100 rushing yards, and 14 total touchdowns. Is that good? Obviously, that's very good. But the concern just comes with him not having played up against any real competition, because he's in the FCS who the fuck is he playing up against there? Some schmoes. So I think that Trey Lance is worthy of being the 3rd overall quarterback, and I would not be surprised if people liked him as the number 2 guy, but I also wouldn't be surprised if people were more scared of Trey Lance. They're thinking, you know what? The situation that he's in is not necessarily, there's a chance that it doesn't unfold in his favor, and he's sitting on the bench with his thumb up his ass, and you're pissed off for 2 years. So I get that wavelength of thinking as well. We are about 10 minutes into this video, so if you guys have ended up enjoying thus far, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. At number 4, we have quarterback Zach Wilson of the New York Football Jets out of BYU, the dude who looks like he is 12 years old. If you guys watched him get drafted, first you would have noticed that his mother is an absolute smoke show. You also would have noticed that the guy looks like he's going to prom or something. Now, again, I'm not making fun of Zach Wilson. We're like the same age. I also look like I'm 12 years old, so not trying to make fun of Zach Wilson. 6'2", 214 pounds out of BYU, the 2nd overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft. Now, I like Zach Wilson a lot. I actually think he's the 2nd best quarterback in the draft, so I think that the Jets made the right move. But when we're talking about fantasy football, you're going to find me hard-pressed to want to draft a guy on the Jets. Now, I understand Adam Gase is gone, but this offense does not look like it's going to be very good in 2021. And with Saleh, the head coach, being a defensive coordinator, I'm not too sure how much he's going to help out Zach Wilson. Now, I think that Zach Wilson is a good quarterback and that he could easily finish, when all things are said and done, as the 2nd best quarterback in the 2021 NFL draft. That is 100% possible, but I think the positioning of where this guy landed is just atrocious. It's just terrible. If he ended up landing in, San Francisco or New England or maybe not Chicago as much, but like a team where I could see this guy really having high success, the Jets to me just are not that answer. I don't think he's going to be very good this year at all for fantasy football, but when you're drafting him, I think you're projecting out into the future as the Jets continue to build and get better. Zach Wilson's college career was pretty decent. He did deal with injuries, though, in 2019. 2018 played quite well, and then in 2021, this guy really balled out, or 2020, I should say, this season. He went from a guy that no one was really talking about. No one's talking about how quarterback out of BYU, Zach Wilson, is going to be a 1st-round pick. No one's talking about that before the season. And then he's crawling on up. He's climbing the fucking ladder. And then he becomes the 2nd overall pick because he played 12 games, 335 passing attempts, 3,600 yards, almost 3,700, 73.4% completion percentage, 33 touchdowns to just 3 INTs, 10 rushing touchdowns, and 254 rushing yards. Now, this is also a case, just like we saw with Trey Lance, of people are going to talk about this guy hasn't played anyone. This guy's not playing any good competition. BYU is just skull-fucking these scrub teams, and then he just puts up all these big stats, which you can discuss, but if you watch the tape, you can see the skills, just like you can see with Trey Lance. So I think that Zach Wilson will be good. I just do not like the landing spot in New York. At number 5, we have a guy that I am very happy to take in my drafts because everything in my mind tells me that this guy is going to completely destroy all of my expectations and be way better. This is quarterback Mac Jones of the New England Patriots, the last 1st-round pick of the quarterback position in the draft at 15 to the New England Patriots. 6'3", 217 pounds. I think that's a lie. This guy looks like he weighs at least 240 with his shirt off. 22.6 years old, out of Alabama. National championship winner. Heisman candidate, Mac Jones. Now, a lot of people are saying that Mac Jones is just a product of the environment of Alabama, that his wide receivers it was like, have you guys ever seen fucking Star Wars where Luke is holding Yoda? Kind of like that, but not really, because Yoda's like the master, but maybe, I guess, Nick Saban is on fucking Mac Jones's shoulder, telling him exactly what to do, and that the wide receivers are just the reason why Mac Jones was so good. Now people are starting to pivot that idea to Tua, which is fucking stupid, and it's hilarious, but I think that Mac Jones is going to be good in New England for one reason and one reason only, and that is because I believe under Bill Belichick, the New England Patriots will never really be bad. Sure, they had a bad last year, but Cam Newton ends up getting corona, and then after that, he doesn't look as good. The team was looking really good to start the year, and it was COVID year. So maybe that just threw everything off in Bill Belichick's brain. And for some reason, everything is telling me that Mac Jones is going to be very good. Now, again, his college stats are pretty solid, but he was really only a one-year starter. Did play some in 2019, but that's after the Tua Tagovailoa injury. He would never have even graced the field in 2019 had Tua not have gotten hurt in 2020. This man played in 13 games, 402 passing attempts, 4,500 passing yards, 41 passing touchdowns, 4 INTs, as well as 14 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Mac Jones is not like the other 4 guys ahead of him. This guy is never going to take the opportunity to try to get out of the pocket and try to rush in a fucking touchdown or try to gain some yards with his feet. He's just not that guy. He just isn't. He will never be that guy. He's more of a guy that stands there like a statue in the pocket, waits for someone to get open, and throws in a dime. Now, the real question is, when will Mac Jones end up starting? Will he even play at all this year? That's a huge question mark. Now, they didn't pay Cam Newton all that much, so he could easily slot in there, and I think we will eventually see Mac Jones this season, but I'm not too sure when that will be. Now, again, my assumption is that the New England Patriots have completely done a 180 from being completely dick last year to being really good this year, and I think that for the future, Mac Jones is going to be sitting pretty. Now, I think this team is very likely to, we've seen a big transition in the Belichick way, because back in the day with Brady, they were kind of slinging it a little. More recently, they've been trying to be a more run-heavy offense, even with Brady at the latter parts of his career in New England. So maybe Mac Jones never really is a top 10 guy in fantasy. I don't think he ever could be, but I do think Mac Jones could easily be like quarterback 16, 15, or 14 every single year. And you drafted him as the 5th quarterback in your draft, and you're just very happy with him because he's like your quarterback in a Superflex league, or he's like the guy that rides your bench, and then if something was to happen, you just throw him in your lineup, and you're pretty happy with him. That's really what I see from Mac Jones. I don't really see top 10, top 5 potential like I could see Zach Wilson, Lance Fields, or Lawrence having in fantasy at any time, but I do think that you shouldn't discredit him for that, because you'd be pretty happy having the quarterback 15 on your roster for the next 10 years, given where you have to draft him in your draft. Now it gets to the part where the fall off completely happens, and we're beginning at number 6 with with Kyle Trask. Quarterback out of Florida, also a Heisman candidate, lands in Tampa Bay. Now, this is an all-time good scenario and an all-time bad scenario at the same time, because Tom Brady might be the fucking Bucs quarterback for the next 10 years, okay? And I'm not even kidding. I'm literally not even kidding. Whatever Tom Brady eats in the TB12 method is going to keep this guy playing until he's a grandfather, and his kids are like 10 years old. I'm not even kidding. I think Tom Brady could play for another 5-10 years because he's just built different like that. He will eventually retire, and he should be able to teach Mr. Kyle Trask a lot. That's what it seems like. There's all this news circulating about how Tom Brady wants to go throw with Kyle Trask, and hopefully he can mold Kyle Trask into being a great quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the future. Now, Kyle Trask was a 2nd-round pick, so it makes you think that the Bucs really liked him. He's not going to play this year unless Brady gets hurt. Knock on wood, Brady literally never gets hurt. I hope he doesn't get hurt. So, he's probably not going to play this year. I highly doubt he plays next year. So you're trying to project what he's going to be in the future. The Bucs team could be completely different 3 years from now than it is right now. That is 100% true. It's going to definitely be different because guys come in and they leave. But I do think that Kyle Trask showed enough in Florida for him to be worthy of being the 6th overall guy off the board. 6'5", 236 pounds, 23 years old, out of Florida. He's also not a guy, though, just like with Mac Jones, who's kind of just a guy who's going to chill out in the pocket. He's just like Mac Jones. He's not like Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence. They're going to try to make things happen with his feet. In 2020, this guy played in 12 games, 437 passing attempts, 4,200 yards, almost a 69% completion percentage. Very nice. 43 passing touchdowns, and just 8 INTs. Now, he did play very good in college, and I think that if Tom Brady grooms this guy up to be what I think he could be, Kyle Trask is definitely worth the 6th overall rookie spot. To me, pretty handily, but I don't think he really has any value until like 2-3 years from now. That's just genuinely how I feel about him, so just put him on your taxi squad because he ain't fucking playing this year. Next up, we have a guy that I think actually will play this year, Davis Mills. quarterback of the Houston Texans out of Stanford, 22.5 years old, 6'4", 225 pounds. Now, Davis Mills out of Stanford got an all-time good situation for himself because we have zero idea what's happening with Deshaun Watson. I'm telling you right now, I don't know if we will even know by the kickoff of the NFL season if he legitimately did what is alleged against him. Now, again, I have no idea, and I don't think most people have any idea if he did it or not. So, at how I feel about it right now, I think that Davis Mills could end up being the fucking starting quarterback for the Houston Texans in 2020. And don't be surprised if that ends up actually happening, that he's the guy I said 2020 and 2021, because the quarterback room in Houston just frankly is not the greatest. Ahead of Davis Mills is Tyrod and Deshaun. And again, we don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. And if Tyrod Taylor's career has told me anything, it's that Tyrod Taylor's going to play like a few games, and then the backup, the guy who just got drafted, is going to go ahead of him and be good. Happened with Baker, happened with Justin Herbert. So maybe we see that with Davis Mills. Maybe it's the Tyrod Taylor curse, and maybe the Houston doctor fucking gives Tyrod the good old 1-2 stab OJ style and lets Davis Mills come into the game. Now, I'm not claiming Davis Mills is fucking even that good, if I'm being honest with you, but when you're sitting back here, quarterback 7, quarterback 8, it's basically a crapshoot between this guy and the next guy, Kellen Mond. So, in 2020 at Stanford, this guy played 5 games, 194 passing attempts, 1,500 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 INTs, 37 rushing yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. 2019, I should say, a 21-year-old season, 8 games, 241 passing attempts, 1,900 passing yards, 11 passing touchdowns, 5 INTs, 44 rushing yards. This guy has played very little games in his collegiate career. So that's worrisome. But I think he might be in a better situation than Kellen Mond to actually end up playing soon. But maybe I'm wrong, because maybe they don't want Kirk Cousins anymore in Minnesota after this season. Kellen Mond is the final quarterback to talk about in this video. 6'3", 211 pounds, 21 years old, out of Texas A&M. 3rd round pick in the 2021 NFL draft. Now, with Kellen Mond, seems like the Vikings wanted to draft Justin Fields. Seems like it. That's the reports. So are they really sold in on a guy they drafted in the 3rd round? I don't know. But Kellen Mond does look like he might be better than Davis Mills, like on tape, because he's just played more fucking games. I mean, Davis Mills, he's played like 13, 14 games legitimately. So I don't really know what to think about that, but I do think he could easily start this year, whereas I don't know what the path to Kellen Mond playing actually is. In 2020, 10 games, 297 passing attempts, 2,282 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 294 rushing yards, and 4 rushing touchdowns. The most interesting part about Kellen Mond is the fact that he can actually run like the other guys, which obviously we know is very good for fantasy. So let me know down below what your guys' top 8 rookie quarterback rankings are. Are you with me? With my top 8? Do you think the exact same as me? You hate my rankings? Do you think that they fucking suck? Do you have it completely different? Let me know down below. I love you guys. I hope that my voice doesn't sound that terrible. I've been fucking nasally. I've been wheezy like little fucking Wayne. So it's kind of hard for me to talk. I missed yesterday's video, but that's because I was working on finals. School is basically over for me at this point. I only have one more assignment due next week, or at the end of this weekend, I should say. So I'm pretty much done with school, so the content's going to be every single day. I apologize for missing. I hope that you guys weren't sad that I was gone, but I will be back again tomorrow. Have a great rest of your guys' day, and hopefully I don't sound as nasally tomorrow. Have a great rest of your guys' day. I love you guys all. Stay safe. Happy fucking Saturday. It's the weekend, baby. Yeah!